Okay, well, yeah. Predator, Doodlebug, modifications, stage 2, from hotrodminibike.com. Now, what that is basically right there is not only the one on top is the new Predator 212 HEMI motor, and as you can see, it is yet to be unboxed. The one below is just a box. The difference, part number, valve cover, part number, valve cover. The one on top is the new HEMI motor. You guys can investigate that later. I bought that guy a couple years ago, maybe, for a Yerf dog go-kart that I had, and basically put it on there. Is pretty cool. And after buying this thing, I learned that there was such thing as this HEMI motor, and I was pretty stoked to run back down. I don't think I literally ran, but it was more of a waltz down here to the garage to learn that I had this new HEMI motor, which most people think is superior to the older motor. See that guy? That's my son. And I'll explain that in a minute. Anyway, so this is the project for the afternoon. The situation is I bought him his mini bike, which he's riding, which has the motor from that Doodlebug on it, because the motor that it came with, which is right there, was pretty pooped. I think it had just major carburation issues, dripping from the carb. So I said, well, I'm going to give him that motor, slapped it on there, and buy this one. And I am going to install all this stuff as well as remove the governor. So that's it for the moment while I set up my project, unbox it, and I will return. Hey guys, Terry here, working on my new Predator 212 HEMI motor, and you know, I've benefited greatly from some key videos that have helped me work on this cool little motor. I'm ready to, I wouldn't say I'm ready, but I'm in the process of working on this guy. Gonna install this stage 2 kit here that I got from hotrodminibike.com, and I've already removed the parts of the governor, and a couple things that I've learned today while doing this, some the hard way, some because I've already watched some YouTube tutorials. One that I learned when I was trying to take off the flywheel, you can see I've already done it, but in trying to take off the this nut, you can see I've already done it, but so this guy was on here, and obviously I had it apart, and I'm thinking, well, how do I hold the motor in place? I just watched a tutorial, and the guy had some big strap that was wrapping around this guy. I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do? Don't have that. So I actually spotted these two holes, and I ran my big standard screwdrivers from Phillips around the same size would work as well. Back this up a little bit. Positioned it here. I think I had in fact, I don't think I know I had the motor standing upright on its base. Positioned it right like that, and simply used this guy right here. What is it? Let me just look at it. Yeah, it's a 19 millimeter, and it worked perfectly. Originally I wanted to slip down like that, but I just put it right like that, and it locked the engine in place so it wouldn't rotate, and it worked great. I have been watching a couple of tutorials where these guys were removing the governor, and they had this guy, which if you have any previous knowledge, sits down in this hole and goes inside the motor. One guy, I'll leave him anonymous, cut the tip off of it, the tip that sticks outside. He said he recommended that you cut it off with a Dremel tool. I saw another couple of folks. This guy grabbed it with a pair of pliers and basically muscled it back and forth until the tip broke off. And the reason behind that was the perception or belief, I should say, that it needed to be broke off in order to push it through. Well, I didn't do any of that. I basically just pushed it through, and of course the motor needed to be rotated exactly right so that the counterweights of the crankshaft were out of the way. But I just wanted to mention that because I didn't have to brake or Dremel tool or anything on this part of the governor, whatever it's called, I don't know. So that's the tip for now. Over now. Thing I wanted to say, and I'll give credit to Sean at Hot Rod Mini Bike. I'm going to next attempt to remove the plastic gear, which is the last part of the governor assembly. On the inside of the crankcase, on the opposite side of this, is a plastic gear, and the tutorials I've seen recommend taking it off from the inside. And the one guy said that he said the hardest thing you'll ever do in mini biking or something to that effect is taking off that little C-clip. Well, I talked to Sean at Hot Rod Mini Bike yesterday about it, and he said you don't have to do that. He said just get a what do you call this thing? A oh, doggone it, I can't think of the name of it. A plunge, or bear with me here. Forget it. You don't need to. Whatever this thing's called, this, right? He said basically just hit it from the outside. So I'm going to attempt it that way. He said basically just wrap it from this end. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to jack it, and hopefully all goes well, and I'll let you know how it turns out. So hopefully I don't have to try to pull my hair out trying to get that little C-clip out. I'll let you know. Probably about 72 seconds after I finished filming my last, I signed off the mention of getting that plastic gear using this guy. Still can't think of the name of it. I don't know why my brain's going blank. Put it on here, grabbed that hammer, 3 hits. Hit it with medium force first time, a little bit more force second time. I saw that it started going down. Hit it again. There it is. No cracks. Looks good to me. No oh, look what I just found. Look what I just found. Focus camera. Looks like a little C-clip to me. If this camera would focus, I think I'd be in really good shape. It's got to be it. That's the little C-clip from hell. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, like I said, first time I've done it, took Sean's advice at Hot Rod Mini Bike, or HotRodMiniBikes.com. I forget which it is, but that was the easiest part of whatever I've done so far. And I also want to give, I forget who gave me the tip, but I spent about an hour trying to wrestle the flywheel off with this same screwdriver, right? And I'm prying up under it like this, you know, and I'm even kind of tapping it in with, you can see where I was trying. Spent about an hour on it. Finally said, okay, I got to YouTube a tutorial. Guy had a great tip. He with, you know, picture the flywheel still being on there. I'm gonna just I wish I could give him credit by name, but I just simply don't remember it. But he said put the nut back on till it's almost flush, so you don't mess up the threads, and get a crowbar, which I had, and I put it right underneath the flywheel to put some pressure on it, and then wrap on that guy. I intentionally dropped that, and I just gave that 1 or 2 good wraps on that, and sure enough, the flywheel popped up. And then I'm sitting there going, well, how do I get the flywheel off? I forgot. But yeah, just took this off. What was taking me an hour because I don't have a flywheel puller took about 22 seconds. So also another great tip. Yeah. Okay, I'm back, and I am, so you can get the orientation on the motor here. This is where the governor dogleg arm, that little black guy, that guy right there, used to come out. Sean at Hot Rod Mini Bike, or Hot Rod Mini Bikes, or sorry, I always forget what it's called, gave me the tip to use a certain type of bolt. And I went to Lowe's and I forgot what he said. So I went over to the nuts and bolts aisle, trying to stimulate my memory, which for whatever reason is not functioning properly today. But didn't get stimulated, and it wouldn't have anyway. So I just winged it basically and bought that thing. I was trying to find an O-ring, couldn't find an O-ring because this thing's basically flat, but I got the next best thing, which is basically a flat rubber guy, that guy, and so far, and it's not self-tapping. This guy I have in this little, you know, I've had this guy for a couple of years. Not a cool, not a bad little thing to have. Anyway, that's not important. I believe, even though this bolt is in there, it's identical to this guy, which is a quarter. It's a quarter, and I believe that's 1 inch. Put the thing in there. I'm halfway through threading it, taking my time, and so I will let you know. So far, so good. It's just about the right feel. It doesn't feel like it's too tight or too loose. Even though, as I mentioned, it's not self-threading, but I don't think it's going to crack that little thing. And I'm thinking with this cool little equivalent of a O-ring, even though it's not donut shaped and basically has flat edges, I think it's going to work perfectly. So I will give you a picture of what the thing is. Rubber washers, 1/4 by 1/2 by 1/16, available at Lowe's. And those are also in one of the drawers at Lowe's, at least at the Fountain, Colorado branch. So I'm going to continue easing it in there, and I'll let you know how it goes. Looks pretty good to me. We can get in there. I'll shine a flashlight in there. Not being too bright. Yeah, it's all right. So my next task is to get the low oil sensor out. I believe that hole is bigger, so deal with that next. Okay, so I just took out the low oil sensor. Let me get my headlamp on there. you can see that there is a nice open area. A little more oil volume. No chance of high torque acceleration. And some pesky sensor shutting down the motor at the exact time when you don't want to. So anyway, just got that done. Oh yeah, and by the way, my retardation has ended. Shockingly enough, since I punched out the governor, notice its absence up there. Since I punched out the governor from the backside with it, yep, it's called a punch, which I'm sure 99.9779% of you figured out. It's called the punch. I also punched out the this threaded part of the low oil sensor as well with it. So anyway, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so now I got to deal with this hole. And the gas tank has these little rubber gaskets, or grommets, they're probably better termed. And I go, wait a second. Keep my camera focused here. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. So I'm gonna you're kind of reverting back to that guy up there where the governor arm used to be. I may have to steal the rubber grommet from that and use it when I do the same type of thing. Obviously, I'm going to put I'm not going to thread this one. I'm going to do a little nut and bolt assembly. I don't know if I've got the right guys here. I might. Yeah, something like this action here. Nut. I should say bolt, nut, rubber dealy-hoo. The only question is, do I put it on the inside or the outside? It may not make a difference. I'll give it some thought and get back to you. Okay, so searching for a nut and bolt for the hole where the low oil sensor was, I finally found this guy, which was in my toolbox. Ran out of brake cleaner. There it is. So I'm going to clean it off a little bit more, but it is the exact same size as these guys, which state they are, must be the biggest one, so it's 3/8 inch, and it must be 1.5 inches long. And it just barely fits in there between the crankshaft, so I'll show you what it looks like after it's in. Okay, that worked pretty well. There's the outside, there's that baby. As I mentioned, I took the rubber grommet washer, whatever you want to call it, that usually is a vibration dampener, whatever you want to call it, for the gas tank, which there are two, and borrowed it for the hole there. That's what it looks like on the inside. Let's see if, I know it's dark in there, but I'm using a headlamp, see if I can show you what that guy looks like in there. Yeah, looks all right. I just happen to know, so I've not run this motor yet. There's obviously some residual oil from the manufacturing testing, and I happen to notice down in here, yeah, there's probably about a 1/4 cup of oil remaining in it, but I'm get my finger down in here and see if you can see that. I already swiped it once with my finger, but I think I'm just gonna. Anyway, I noticed that there was some metal, oh, there's a pretty good shot of it because I wiped my finger on it. That's from So I think I'm just going to get a paper towel in there and clean up that tiny bit of initial break-in matter, I'll call it, just so that when I fill it for the first time, there'll just be that much less. So my last job for the night is going to be to plug that one last little hole from the governor gear, which may or may not be the exact same size as the top of the arm for the governor. So I'll let you know. Okay, so as I mentioned a minute ago, I happened to notice that since this was a new motor, I haven't run it yet, there was some residual oil, obviously, during probably their quality or just their initial testing at the manufacturing. They probably run the motor, either break it in or just test it for quality control or whatever. There's about a quarter of a cup of oil left. I drained it out, but I happened to notice kind of that dark, almost black material tucked in the right down there and a little bit down there. Put my finger on it, saw some of it back there. I took this paper towel, and that's what I got. I don't know if it's going to show up, but in just the right light, you can basically see it's basically that fine metal powder. So I thought it was kind of cool. So anybody that's doing anything like I am, if they open up their motor before running it the first time, a pretty, I don't know if it is worth anything, but since these motors obviously don't have oil filters, it's an easy thing to do, just to put a paper towel in there and maybe get that tiny little bit of initial break-in metal that occurs to prevent any premature wear, maybe make the motor last a little bit longer. Right, for the governor gear hole, I'm going to use the same size as I did on the top, only shorter. It's a 1/4 inch, and that has got to be a 1/2 by a 1/2 inch. And I used again this little these little rubber washers, as they're called at Lowe's. So I'm going to thread it in, even though they're not self-tapping. I just eased it in, and it seemed fine. So I'm gonna take my time and ease it into that baby right there, and I'll let you know how it goes. There it is. Turned out pretty sweet. Whether it leaks oil or not is, of course, a question. I was thinking about putting a washer on it, but so far I'm just gonna leave it like it is, and I think it's gonna be all right. I haven't even looked to see what it looks like on the other side, so let's take a peek in here. Looks like in there. Oh yeah. Oh. Oh boy. Yeah, okay, so that looks good. And that's basically it for now. I'm gonna put the crank or the cam back in there, and I have to wait to order a flywheel and 26-pound springs before I can get this baby running. And I've got everything else. I think I mentioned it before. I've got max torque clutch, filter, plate, This guy looks pretty slick. This is an RL, I think he called it an RLV muffler. He said, Sean at Hot Rod Mini Bikes said it was the one that sounds most like a motorcycle, which doesn't bother me one bit. Oh yeah, and I got to order a cam as well. So I'm going to order. A cam. And let's see what else. I think I'm doing the cam. I'm doing the flywheel, and the upgraded springs. And you know, the only other thing that I thought about was the billet connecting rod, and I looked at a tutorial, and I just don't want to get into that. So I'm going to leave it like it is. And if I put in the connecting rod according to Sean, I'd have about 12 or 13 horsepower. I don't know what the connecting rod could be. I should say, it was responsible for horsepower wise. So I'm just going to say I should be expecting 11 to 12 horsepower. So we'll see, but I'm pretty excited about it. Slap it on that baby and boogie. Bye-bye.